Hey, hello, and welcome today to our little webcast. And I thought we'd bring in a guest to kind of put in perspective an interesting question I want to ask this guy, because he's the expert and he certainly knows. This Pat Bergeron, who hosts probably the most widely read website in Louisiana, lanewslink.com,
right,
is what it is to go, lanewslink.com on your website. And here's a question I want to put to Pat that a lot of us have been asking. And Pat, let me hit you right up with this. When Bobby Jindal was elected governor, it looked like this was the guy that more conservative, financially responsible people were looking for. He was bright, young, seemed to be like a real geek when it came to numbers. He'd had a pretty good background on paper. And you would have thought that the good government folks, the C.B. Fergusons, that is a legislative watchdog, people like Moon Griffon, who hosts one of the largest radio stations, or the radio programs in North Louisiana, a cross-section of newscasters and observers of the legislature would just embrace this guy and he'd be their darling. And maybe initially there were, but there's been this divorce, this falling out over Jindal, and it seems like virtually every close watcher of him has come out with a negative impression and feel like maybe that he's all pizzazz and either all pizzazz and no substance, or calculatedly carrying on an agenda, maybe for his own personal good, that does not gel in the national scene. Is that a fair evaluation? I mean, you watch this closer than anybody I know. How do you see the demise of Bobby Jindal? Or am I saying that fairly?
Well, the poll numbers aren't reflecting it as of yet, but I've seen the internal poll numbers, and he's weakening daily from what I've been seeing in the polls. But what is going on, the first crack in the dike was the pay raise vote last year, where he got caught in the crossfire with the legislature and the public. And as you saw, the public got all tense and got him to change his position.
It looked like he waited such a long time to react. We've heard so many insider stories. He made a deal. Look, that's your decision. I won't veto it. And then the pressure built enormously. I had legislators tell me, well, Jim, I'm going to vote for that pay raise because in a couple of weeks the public are going to forget all about it. But boy, they sure didn't forget and still haven't forgotten, have they?
I don't believe they have. That's strike one. Now we're heading into strike two with, ever since the McCain-Obama election, Bobby Jindal has been touted as a presidential candidate on the national level. And it appears that since he's been traveling out of state and talking to all the Republican things and doing everything a presidential candidate does, that he's kind of neglecting his duty here in Louisiana. And that's not the only problem with that. The second problem with that is all of his positions he's taking, all of his stands he's taking politically are focused on becoming president and not being a good governor to the state of Louisiana.
Yeah, we're a state that is a populous state to a certain portion, number one. And number two, you know, when you're 50th on so many lists, there are a number of needs, and to get over the hump, you want to take every federal dollar you can get and try to be very creative in trying to get our state to catch up. But it seems like he's operating like the governor of South Carolina or some states that are ahead of us by saying, let's just get government as little involved as possible. That maybe sells well to a conservative base nationwide, but doesn't help Louisiana, number one. And number two, I'm not sure there's much growth in that stance.
Well, he might be headed to strike three with this session, because what he's looking at is massive cuts to higher education and health care. And if they maintain massive cuts to our flagship university, there will be significant political fallout. I don't know, I mean, he didn't go to LSU. He doesn't understand the culture, I don't think, yet. Maybe he does, but if he does, he's sure playing it the wrong way. But I think fully funding LSU, if that doesn't happen, Bobby Jindal will have a very difficult time getting reelected governor, much less running for president.
LSU is interesting in terms of relationship with governors. The most governors, some of the other governors, Edwin Edwards had his mark of success, but never really paid that much attention to LSU. It wasn't a priority with Dave Treen, with Buddy Roemer, a little bit with Mike Foster. But you go back over history, the John McKithen, wildly popular governor, was a diehard LSU guy. Huey Long, Earl Long.
Mike Foster.
What?
Mike Foster.
Well, Foster was, that's right. He had a long history with LSU.
And you see who left office the most popular? Those guys you're talking about.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And you know, especially when you're trying to catch up so much, there is a philosophy, and I to some degree pick up on that, that you know, you can try to buy your way out of the hole just by buying companies to come in, but there's only so much money you have to buy, and you still got a third-rate education system and a poor healthcare delivery system, and not really the climate for economic development. Or you can pour that money into education, these other attributes that give you long-range benefits. So it looks like we're trying to buy our way out with this poultry plant in North Louisiana, the Saints, and other huge expenditures, and as you say, taking it away from LSU and other key elements of what it takes to long-range solve the problem.
It didn't really hit home with me personally until this year. I told you a few minutes ago that I'm going to Nebraska tomorrow to go look at a law school for my daughter. I could not pay her enough money to go to law school in Louisiana. I've tried and tried to get her to do it. She won't do it. She said, "Dad, the future is not here." Well, and if we cut the education system we have, I mean, she's an LSU graduate, graduated in 3 years. I mean, she understands what our education is, and if they cut our posture, I mean, the last couple of years we've grown, we've gotten better at LSU. Well, our national rankings are better, everything's better at LSU. If he cuts that budget, we're going to drop like a brick, and we'll feel the ramifications.
Well, how optimistic are you? You're painting a concerning scenario, and I agree with you, but if Bobby Jindal would call you up right now and say, "Pat, I've been following some of your commentary. I saw you on the Jim Brown website. I hear what you had." What advice would you give? What are the 2 or 3 things you'd tell me I need to do to really focus on this state and turn it around? What advice would you give him?
Well, he actually missed the first thing I'd tell him. Last year is the year he should have been cutting the budget, and then the year he should have been worried about too many people on the payroll, getting rid of the people that don't do enough work for their money, all the minutia that makes that massive state budget. I mean, that's what we got here. I mean, 90% of the state budget is payroll. So what you're doing is talking about people. You're talking about laying people off.
And he would have had a healthy surplus, would have gotten him a lot of national attention. Plus, the bleeding would have not been nearly as much this year, is what you're saying.
Absolutely. He got there and he started playing the game with the guys down there, and that's what happens. You don't cut things when that happens.
On the trend he's going now, let's assume he would run for re-election, which would be 2.5, 3 years away, 3 more years away. Do you think on the trend he's going now that there will be major candidates emerge against him if he doesn't change his tactic or direction?
I think either way, I think he'll draw a major Democrat opponent. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But he might draw a Republican one the way he's headed right now.
Well, Pat, thanks for your observations. You've got a great insight, and I know my viewers enjoy hearing what you have to say. Again, if they want to stay up, now you post newspaper columns and commentary. You have your own videos. You post things at least once a day, sometimes twice a day. My viewers can go to all the things on your site by going to give me the full website again. How do they access it?
lanewslink.com.
Say Louisiana, but say lanewslink.com. Right. Well, I'd urge you viewers to do so, because that's where I start my mornings off every day. Pat, thanks for spending some time with me today.
Thank you, Jim. Okay. Enjoyed it.